Hello again, it's Broadsword, and we've got a couple of things to get done for this last video. First of all, we've got combat text, and then I'm going to summarise quickly the remaining interesting add-ons that I've got. So, without further ado, let's demonstrate. We've got xCT is the shortcut. This is very similar to mix scrolling battle text, apart from it's more configurable, and I prefer to minimise the amount of stuff I have on screen. So you'll notice that in test mode there's just a few numbers that pop up here. It doesn't look exactly as you see it here in-game, and I'm not showing you in-game because it closes the configuration window during combat. So with that going, you can see there's not much going on, mainly because I have purely outgoing crits module active. Everything else is turned off. I'm not really interested in what's coming in to me, as long as I can observe my own health. That's all I need. And I think for most people, when they're DPSing, the only the thing that gives you the good feel is to see a few good big numbers coming up. And that's the main reason for me having my crits visible. Other than that, it's just to remind me that I'm actually doing something, if I'm not in range or whatever, like things like that. So the battle text, let's see, go back to here, we've got move. This is the grid that allows you to set up all of the different elements. I've reduced it to just this one. And yeah, there's not much to say really. If you want to have a go with this, play around and configure it as you like. There are some in raid, you will have a few prompts come up, like messages about what the boss is doing, that this covers. However, you will probably have either bigwigs or DBM, which will do exactly the same stuff. So yeah, I don't think you really need all of the notifications that this can give. So yeah, that's good. I've changed the font on this to make it a nice clean font that I use on virtually everything else. It's the same font everywhere else on my UI, but yours will probably look a bit different when you first set it up. Right, going around, we've got a few other odds and ends. If we go to my artifact, you'll notice here that all of these things have numbers on. This is an overlay used by Artifact Progression Path. That's the name of the add-on, and it just highlights the next one for you to choose based on optimal path. The optimal being the one that gives you the most DPS or the most healing or whatever. And it gets this information from Icy Veins, which is one of my preferred websites for theorycraft. So I've been using this one just to give me a shortcut to choosing traits as I level alts and things. It's much quicker than going to research everything on the website. Right, we've got Bagnon. That's the single bag mod that you see down here, and very nice it is. I like to leave it fairly standard. Bag sorting is covered both by this and by Blizzard, so you need to be careful about which options you tick. Crack cooldown. Now that is one that shows you numbers on your buttons. So for example, I'll have, there you go, red border on one of my cooldowns, and it counts it down. You will also see on some classes a green border, which means that you can actually use the ability again, and it will stack on top of itself. So for example, the Druid Bear Tank has an armor bonus. You can actually double up. So it comes up green with a countdown showing you how many ticks are left on it, but it will also mean that you can reapply. Whereas if it's red, that is meaning that you can't reapply until it's finished the timer. So crack cooldown, that's quite useful. They jar character stats. I will put all of these pronounced with the correct spelling somewhere else. I might actually put it on the video description. That is what is responsible for all this extra information in my character screen. You'll see there's a load of stuff here. Actually, not all of this should be here, I need to change it. But you'll see lots of extra information, and it's condensed as well, which is helpful. Normally I have a bit less than you see here, but for some reason it's changed its configuration. But yeah, all your useful stats are there. I like to sometimes have that open while I'm doing dummy tests to see what is procking, if I have a crit proc or whatever, or a haste proc, things like that. It's limited usefulness, but good to have information to hand. Flash talent, this is one of my recent favourites. Instead of the large talent UI and having to flick through and change talents long-winded way, I've got this bound to a key, which is in this case T, and this gives me a quick way to change my current talents on the fly. And the really nice thing is that it has a quick switch, which means I can switch between tanking and DPS just by pressing this button. And notice something else, it changes my gear with it. So if I've got any gear that is tied to that particular spec, then it will automatically change it. So you'll see I've got a different cloak, I've got the same helmet, but I haven't got the braces, etc. If I switch back, all of this will go back to my frost. So I've got different braces, and it's changed that back, etc. So yeah, very nice little feature that, and there are more things you can do with it, but that's one thing that I've used a lot of recently, and it's nice to have it on screen in a way that it doesn't get in the way too much. Right, what else have we got? Garrison Commander is not that important. That just manages missions in your class hall. Leatrix Plus is a quality of life add-on, accessing it by LTP. This just gives you a few options like automating NPC chats, automatic things to do with groups. So for example, I get a group request from a friend, it automatically accepts it. And if someone whispers me in a certain way, it will also work. There are many other options. You can tell it to do a lot more than I'm using, but a lot of it is covered by other add-ons that I have, so do check everything that has a little cog on it. Do check for the options that contains, because it might well cross over with other things. But that's a very nice little thing, and it's updated very regularly, so check that out. I use light mounts for a mount macro. Now this is fairly basic, but it allows a set of mounts to be used across every character, across character specific or otherwise, and it's quite nice. At the moment I just have a single standard mount that I use for flying and running, because it's a nice one that I'm just used to using. It does also work with druid forms as well, so it's a nice little tool. There are other mount macros that do a similar thing, but this is the one that I'm using at the moment. Big wigs and little wigs is the encounter helper that I'm using at the moment. Not much to show there. Go and have a look at some videos if you wish. And this next one is very important. Move anything. If you go into, after you've installed this add-on and you go into your main system menu, you've got move anything. Now there's a lot to this and it can be quite confusing, but in general info panels are what you want to change. You'll notice there's only a few that I've changed because in general you're not using many of them in a specific way. And if we want to view them, there we are. It's a long time since I used it. Right, so these are the movers. Now these are just placeholders for where these different elements appear, and you'll see that I've got a bank, character, dressing room. Dressing room is just where you view gear, so it's like previewing gear, and artifact frame, and that means that I can have all of those open without having to move them around to see things at the same time. That would be more complicated if I had more time to spend on it, but these are just a sample of the ones that I've found useful to move around the screen. You don't have to move every element, and I haven't, so there's only a few. What was that one? Specialisation, talents. Yeah, so the talents is a fairly minor one because it's covered by that other mod I was showing you earlier. So I'm going to turn those off. But yeah, move anything, very useful, and it will also move elements from other add-ons as well. Need to know is the Cooldown Tracker that I use. You've seen this on my other videos, but this one's very nice because I like to line up all of these to know when is a good time to pop any of my other major cooldowns. Especially this one, Syndragos's Fury, which needs everything up to be of optimal use. Personal Loot Helper, you may have experienced this one when you've been in group with me. It's a tool that analyses loot drops, and it will automatically make suggestions on who can receive loot based on their eye level. So if someone has an item in there, in the particular slot that is available, that is lower eye level, and the person that wins the item already has an item higher, it will suggest via a whisper and in chat that they trade it. It's very nice to have because you often miss things otherwise, and when you're in a group it's good to share stuff that you don't need. Thanks Chat, spelt PH, is the chat add-on that I use to make sure it's standardised, and I have fairly heavily changed my chat settings, adding new windows, etc. But not much to see there. It does a few nice things like puts a little prefix where you've got group chat or guild chats in this case, and it'll do the same thing for other things. Party chat will be a P and things like that. So yeah, it's nice. It keeps it nice and tidy in the corner. Scarder is my damage meter, which I've mentioned before, but I've fairly heavily modified that so to make it as inconspicuous as possible. Postal. Now, if I was by a mailbox, I'd show you, but that is a very good mail add-on that helps you manage large numbers of mail. More useful if you were doing a lot of auction house, but I've had limited need for it in the recent past. Sexy map. Sexy map is what makes this a lot tidier up around your map area. I have relatively few minimap icons, but the ones I do have I like to hide with a mouse over. So yeah, you can see how I have that set up, and again the clock is controlled by that, and yeah, you can have your coordinates. I normally do have coordinates, but I'm not sure why that's not there. Relic Helper. That is this item. You'll see in the tooltip at the bottom, you'll see the stats for different relics. They are either up or down based on your current relics, and obviously in this case I've got a negative on all of those, hence I'm just about to vendor them. But it's very useful to see if you're going to get an improvement from a relic that you have in your bag without having to go and check it first hand. So, nice one to use. And last of all is xLoot. I've got a... let's just get that on screen. This just gives you a nicer interface to the loot windows. There's nothing really new, apart from loot. The loot monitor is something you don't get in the Blizzard UI, and you'll see there that that's just a live sort of item drop list. It obviously includes drops for other people as well, so you can just mouse over and find out what's coming up. But when you do get loot rolls, then you get that in a separate window that looks more like the one that you see there. Let's get rid of that. Okay. And there we are. I hope that's given you a good overview of everything that I've got. I don't think there's anything missing. So yeah, enjoy and speak to me in game.